Hello, Macadorish Football Fan TV. This is the League of Ireland show. It's myself, Paul Nealon. I am joined by the one and only Gary Spain, and we're going to get straight in. Busy week in terms of League of Ireland football itself, with the European football and all that stuff. We'll start with that. I suppose great week for Shamrock Rovers. We were sitting here around this time last week, I think it was, before the game, wondering if they could finish off the job. That they did. Rory Gaffney and Audemo Omaku with the two goals in a 2-1 win and a aggregate score of 5-2 to Rovers. Great. Now they've effectively qualified for group stage football at the very least for the Europa Conference League. They have a tie now against Ferencvaros. I hope I said that right. In isn't it Bosnia? I think
Hungary. They're Hungarian.
Sorry, do you know what that is? Because Mo Besic used to play for them,
Yeah.
and he's Bosnian. So sorry, that's. But yeah, obviously a very good side, and it won't be an easy task for Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, no, look, it will be a very tough task, but the main thing is, as you said, they've secured group stage football, and that was a really, really impressive performance away to Skopje, as indeed was the home one, because the North Macedonians were not a bad side, and for Rovers to beat them home and away was really impressive. And it sounds like it was a really professional front foot performance in Skopje as well. And look, it was never in doubt, and hats off to them. Look, it is fantastic. It's fantastic for Shamrock Rovers. I think it's also fantastic for the league and gives us a bit of status that our champions are going to be playing group stage football. Ferencvaros, look, they're a side with considerably. They're a much bigger club than Rovers. They're probably the biggest club in Budapest, although that's a bit controversial because there's a lot of football rivalry in Budapest. But huge club, fantastic stadium. Look, it's a bit of a free hit for Shamrock Rovers. It would be fantastic if they could get into the Europa League. But no matter what happens, worst case, they're in the Europa Conference group stages if everything goes wrong. So fantastic, great to see, and hats off to Stephen Bradley and his side.
Yeah, I think a lot of credit must go to Stephen Bradley. He's obviously had so many issues lately with his own family and stuff like that, and I think it's a nice way to kind of give hats off to his young fella as well. I think it's a great moment for him, and I think the players are really pulling in the same direction for him. He obviously rejected the chance to go to Lincoln to stay with Shamrock Rovers, and now he's secured, as we said, at least group stage football. Virgin Media are going to be showing all their games as well on their channel, so it's great. It's great for the League of Ireland to be able to showcase our teams on like national television and in European fixtures. Time to time I do work in Virgin Media, and I'm sitting there watching. I'd love if one of our clubs were on it when I'm watching the Europa Conference League, for example, where it is, so to speak, minnows. But at the same time, you would like to see our Irish clubs in there and doing well. And I suppose Pats, on the other hand, were very, very unlucky. We were at that game. They were unlucky not to, get a result against CSK Sofia, which was, again, it was a really strong performance by Pats, but they just couldn't seem to get the goal. But in terms of their performance overall, other than CSK's first goal, I thought Pats were the better team. Other than that, overall on the night, despite not scoring.
Yeah, it was very disappointing. Pats played really well, as you said. Disappointed to concede from a corner, because you kind of think that that'd be bread and butter defending to our league. But as you said, Pats had plenty of chances at 1-0 down, were probably the better side, and then to be caught with that sucker punch. I know Tim Clancy was, well, I was very unhappy with the referee. I think it was very poor. It wasn't a free kick. It was a very, very harsh penalty. And so it was very tough for Pats to go out like that. It was a great occasion in Tala, fantastic crowd, great atmosphere, and just a shame that we won't have another one of those European nights for Pats this coming Thursday.
Yeah. Well, I just, just for Pats, and then obviously the goalkeeper's left now as well. Anang, he's gone back, and that kind of left a bit of a sour taste in Tim Clancy's mouth as well, just the way that he has left. All that came out, like he wouldn't have travelled to Bulgaria if they didn't let him leave and stuff like that. So there was all that kind of going on in the background as well for Tim Clancy and St. Pat. So there was a lot to kind of take in for them over the last couple of weeks, and obviously then at the end of the game with the nonsense that happened with your man Deneuer and the way Taritsov got a free kick for nothing, for literally Atakaya putting the ball through his legs and he went down injured, and then they got a free kick somehow from that. Even though the ref didn't see anything, he just saw the player lying down. The fourth official didn't see anything because Tim Clancy was given out to him. So it was just an absolute shit show from the officials, and as Tim Clancy said, it was literally favouring the bigger club in Europe. And that's the disappointing thing, because you would have thought, like, if you were, with VAR and with that, if that was involved in the game, would things have changed in that respect, and would Pats maybe have even gotten to extra time or penalties and maybe won it that way? Because they just didn't look like scoring on the night. But the longer the game went on and they were bringing on their pacey players, for me it looked as though the game was fancying Pats that bit more. And then they obviously got the free kick, and then the Sofia player actually handles it first, and then it goes on to Brockbank. I think it was Brockbank, and he handles it, and he gives a penalty there. And again, I think if VAR is there, that's not given. And and as well as that, Taritsov as well hit an elbow at some Pats player as well right in front of us. I think it was Atakai, or was it Tunde? Tunde, I'm just going to call him Tunde. When he came on, he shoved him in the back, and then he got an elbow. So a lot of things went against Pats in that respect from the referee. But it's hard enough trying to play one of the best teams of Bulgaria like that. We saw Rovers with Ludogorets as well. They do have good experienced players who know how to kind of play referees and stuff like that, and they showed that. And because they had that experience, and Pats probably didn't. There's a couple of players for Pats that probably had a bit of European experience, but not many. There's a lot of young players in that squad, but it will stand to them, I think, over the course of time. And they made a good showing for Irish football teams, I think, in Europe, and they'll be looking to finish the season strong and hopefully get into Europe or on a good cup run. I'm sure that'll be the task now for Tim Clancy.
Well, unfortunately, Pats, of course, are out of the FAI Cup. Fantastic win for Water. Yeah.
So, they'll be looking to finish fourth, basically, or in the top European spots anyway. I think that will be Tim Clancy's remit for the end of the season at this stage.
Yeah, definitely. I think for any of the clubs that enjoyed European football, and certainly Pats and Sligo did our league proud, and they had fantastic European nights. I think they'll definitely want to be back there again next season. And it does look between Pats and Sligo that they're battling at most for one spot. It's very hard to see both of them reach top four, which is what they'd need now to have any chance of Europe. I think fourth place normally is enough. Obviously, it depends on who wins the FAI Cup. But I think any Pats fan, or even any neutrals that enjoyed Tala, or those that were in the showgrounds for Sligo Rovers' fantastic run, would love to be back for those European nights next season.
Yeah, I think, look, there's a magic to it as well. I remember when Shells were in Europe and how brilliant that was, and what an occasion those games were against Deportivo and against Lille and Hajduk Split as well, that game as well, where Dave Rogers scored that goal that a lot of people don't forget, especially I don't forget. It's one of my best childhood memories. Alan Moore as well. Alan Moore's goal is actually almost forgotten about because of the level of the strike of Dave Rogers' goal. But Alan Moore's goal was obviously the one that that basically effectively won the tie overall, and you finished the game off. Everyone could celebrate them, but just those nights, Dundalk, Robbie Benson, his goal, that team under Stephen Kenny playing in Europe, Shamrock Rovers as well, probably the team that took the lead against Spurs in White Hart Lane as well. There's all these really good moments, and we don't have that many of them, but you'd be hoping now that this is the start of regular, maybe regular European competition in the League of Ireland in terms of group stage football, and people being able. This is going to be the way to grow the league if we can continuously get group stage football. Now, the fact is, if it's going to be Rovers every year, everyone's going to be supporting them, which is going to be a nightmare for the rest of the league. But it's up to the other teams now to catch up. So that should be the I suppose the template that everybody should be looking at is the way they've gone about it now. I know Dan McDonald has been saying it for a long time. It's like, if you're the champions, they've got the easiest route to get, well, not Champions League football, but European football and group stage football, which has been shown. Like, it wasn't an easy task beating Scoopy, but in fairness to Rovers, they knew that they had to get the result in the first leg. They did. Gary O'Neill's goal was probably the most crucial goal of the whole tie. They went on and done it. Sligo, as you said, they had great nights beating Motherwell and stuff like that. Obviously, the penalty shootout win as well. They lost 5-2 on aggregate to Viking, but they did make a good shot, I suppose, winning the second leg 1-0 after being beaten 5-1 over in Viking. So they got back in 1-0, 5-2 aggregate score. But again, the league will be their focus now, I think. And look, they put on a good showing by beating Motherwell as well, which kind of said to a lot of the people who see a lot of our players going over to the SPL or SPFL, whatever you want to call it, that our teams can compete with them. They just might have more money. And maybe if we can start getting a bit more investment and regular European football within our league, that we might start seeing players staying here. But it has to be regular European football for players that want to have to stay. I think a lot of it's all well and good if you want to stay and play, but you need to be winning things. You know, you're not going to keep a player over here if they have any aspirations to be, say, an Ireland international or whatever. Now, I think if you're playing for Shamrock Rovers and you're playing European football, you have a chance of making that Irish squad. Someone like a Jack Byrne or a Graham Burke, who's been called up previously before. I think that, like, playing with Rovers, you have a chance, but I think any other club at the minute, I just don't think you would get into the Irish setup, and especially a lot of players are playing well now at the moment as well. But I think it's a good way of getting yourself noticed, recognised, and into the international squad, I think.
Yeah, I think the European participation is crucial. And definitely Dan is right. I mean, the champions are really the only realistic prospect of getting group stage football, because for what Shamrock Rovers, the key thing was beating Hibernians of Malta in the first round, because that guaranteed them 3 shots at group stage. Ludogorets, as expected, just proved too much, and that's no disrespect. Shamrock Rovers did fantastically against them, and maybe on another night might have come back more in the tie from Razgrad, and then could have turned it around in Tala. But as you said, they did the job against Scoopy, and that's guaranteed the group stage football. Realistically, St. Pat's and Sligo Rovers did incredibly well, but even if Pats had beaten CSK, they still would have had to beat Basel this week and next week to get group stage. And Sligo Rovers, I mean, Viking just proved too much. And remember, Viking put out Sparta Prague in the last round. So the caliber of wins needed for the other clubs I just think it's just too much. You need 4 wins in the Europa Conference to get group stage, and I think that's just a bridge too far for our clubs. But the champions every year have a real chance of it, and it is Shamrock Rovers at the moment. But I think there's a lot happening in clubs like Derry City and Dundalk to show that they won't have it all their own way in the coming years anyway. There's no doubt about that.
And I think, like, people might think I'm biased or I'm mad, but I think Shells are in a very good financial position as well at the moment, and I think that shows by the way they're able to keep a lot of players. Now, I know they lost this week, and we'll come on to the domestic results now in a sec, but there's definitely a lot of clubs that are starting to kind of get their act together. As you said, Derry, Dundalk, I'd say Pats, Shells, Sligo, Bows to a certain extent.
Well, Bows are keeping. I just see now Bows, the players Bows signed last month. They were all signed on 18-month contracts, because that had been a huge problem for Keith Long, that he was basically doing an incredible job finding players, building a squad, and then come November, the best players were cherry picked, and so at least the players they've signed this July are already signed for next season. So that'll be a real bonus for Bows. But there is, I think, for any of the clubs, there is a bit of a catch up. And for me, it looks like Derry City and Dundalk are probably the furthest down the road to really challenge Shamrock Rovers next season. And we can get on and talk about it because the league is not done and dusted this season yet either.
Yeah, I agree. I think Dundalk are still a little bit off, but I think this the end of the season and a rebuild there. Well, not really a rebuild, but you know what I mean. Like Stephen O'Donnell is still rebuilding there. You look at the job he did at St. Pat's. I think in his second year they were brilliant and they won the cup and they were very strong and pushed Rovers right till the kind of last stretch of the season. They got great results and he was brilliant at bringing young players through to mix in with what he already had and obviously the players that he brought in at Dundalk. So I think they will be there or thereabouts in the next season or two as well. As you said, Derry as well. They'll look to reinvest as well, and I think that they'll definitely be there thereabouts and maybe if they strengthen with European competition as well, that they could maybe do something next season. But as you say, it is a very hard task to get unless you go down the Champions route, it seems. But that's why you should always aim to be winning your league regardless. But I think it's exciting times for the league because it's starting to get more competitive. Shamrock Rovers do have an edge, and I think we've made a point of it before that they've really got their house in order in terms of the stadium, in terms of their academy, in terms of their recruitment, and in terms of their management and staff. Like, they really have everything that every other club are kind of looking at them going like, that's what we need, the stability. And the fact that they've had the same, I think, when was Stephen Bradley took over? Was it 2016?
Yeah, I think it was 2016. Yeah.
So, they've had a long-standing consistency and stability there, which a lot of clubs in the League of Ireland haven't. So I think they'll be the template for other clubs to kind of follow. But let's get into, I suppose, the league, and starting off with Shamrock Rovers and Derry. There was obviously a bit of turmoil over this fixture in terms of Rovers coming back from Europe and Derry not basically allowing them to have the extra 24 hours and trying to catch them on the hop, which you can see it from both sides, which both clubs will be upset about. But a 0-0, a good result, I suppose, for Rovers in some respects, because a lot of their players will be tired. I think Derry, if they're trying to catch Rovers for the league, they'd be very disappointed that they couldn't get one up on them.
Yeah, look, it's definitely a better result for Rovers than it was for the home side. I think Derry missed a penalty in that game as well. Could stand corrected on that. But an excellent point for Stephen Bradley. There was definitely no love lost. They really felt they didn't get the support. I'm actually not sure. I was under the impression there was a rule in Europe that if you were playing away in consecutive weeks, you could get the game postponed. So I'm not sure what the situation was like that. Maybe that's an old rule. Maybe it's been deleted. I'm not very clear on that. But certainly, the one thing I would say is Rovers have definitely the best squad in the league, and they have a strength and depth that none of the other clubs have. And I think it will be a very sweet point for Stephen Bradley. I think realistically, if Derry City wanted to win the league, they would have needed to hold on against Dundalk and Oriel Park last week. They were 1-0 up, basically in added time, and then needed to actually take the 3 points at the Brandywell on Friday, neither of which they managed to do. So they're still in contention, but it's probably just a bridge too far now for them to catch Shamrock Rovers. And for me, a far, far better point for Shamrock Rovers than it was for Derry City.
Yeah, well, they're sitting now top of the league with a game in hand on Dundalk, but they're on 53 points, and Derry, I see there, are on 45. So Dundalk have leapfrogged them there, and I know they've played a game more, but they're still 4 points ahead of Derry. and they're only 4 points off Shamrock Rovers, albeit Shamrock Rovers have a game in hand. But Dundalk are really starting to kind of climb the table and starting to grind out results. And I think you mentioned there about the draw they got against Derry last week, which was a huge result, and now they've got a result against Bows as well. You know, Ty Ryan getting the own goal, but they still played a large part in that game with 10 men. Andy Boyle getting a red card in the 62nd minute, and that was a huge result for Dundalk as well, away in Dalymount. And yeah, they're going strong at the moment, and they seem to be getting a good run of consistency under their belt as well.
Yeah, look, it was a fantastic win for Dundalk, and fully deserved from what I heard, that they were much the better side before the red card, and probably had a good shout for a penalty just after the Ty Grind unfortunate own goal, and even with 10 men, were reasonably comfortable, I believe, in seeing out the game. So it was a big win for Dundalk. To be honest, I think Stephen O'Donnell has probably exceeded his own expectations and that of the fans by being in second place. They've done incredibly well. I don't want to take anything away from them, because they've definitely overachieved, and they've had a fantastic season. And as you say, they're 4 points clear of Derry, even if Derry have a game in hand. They're 4 points behind Shamrock Rovers with a game more played. I don't think even the most optimistic of Dundalk fans would have thought they'd be in a title race at this stage of the season. They go to Tala, I think it's on Sunday. If they can catch Rovers in Tala on Sunday, then who knows if the gap is down to a point. Shamrock Rovers still, well, they still have 8 games, at least 8 games in Europe to play at this point. It'll be down to 7 after Sunday, obviously. There is potentially, I suppose, a chance for Dundalk then. I think it's probably a bridge too far, but you never know. I mean, who knows? But certainly Dundalk have had a fantastic season. And I think if there was any slight doubts, I think that win over Bows does kind of cement their place in the top 3 and in Europe. The gap down to St. Pat's in 4th place is probably just too much at the moment. As obviously 2nd and 3rd is guaranteed Europa Conference League. So I think Dundalk and Derry City should be safe enough for European football. And that leaves potentially, and of course, if the cup winner comes from outside the top 3, 4th place will not be enough for Europe. But potentially the likes of Pats, Bows, Sligo Rovers, possibly Shells, although I think maybe not at this stage, are the teams in the battle for 4th, with, of course, Bows and Shells still having a chance of getting into Europe via the FAI Cup.
Yeah, well, there's, Damien Duff has made a point that he'd love to win the cup, but it's easier said than done. There's a long way to go in that. But yeah, I do really believe that Dundalk have been punching above their weight so far this season, but like, fair play to them, and they've still got a lot of leaders in that team from years gone by. Andy Boyle, I know he got sent off. Pat Hubin, Brian Gartland's still in that squad as well, and I could be missing a couple as well. Robbie Benson back there as well. So there's quite a few strong leaders that obviously Stephen O'Donnell thinks really highly of. That he's kept them around and brought some of them back and brought some of them with him as well when he was at Pat. So really seems to trust these guys, and you can see why when they're getting results like they're getting. And then we'll move it on then, I suppose, the race for 4th place, you would say. With St. Pat's getting a 1-0 win, and Serge Atakai is scoring again. Mark Doyle with a red card as well, obviously got a red card in Europe too. But a huge result for the Saints, and they're sitting in 4th now, 4 points ahead of Sligo Rovers. And it looks as though now, if they have to just focus on just the league, that they will probably finish in the 4th spot, you would imagine, if they have no other distractions with the cups and Europe and everything else. If they can finish strongly, you'd probably fancy them to finish in that 4th spot, considering the gap that they have. But then again, you just never know in this league, as we know with the bottom end of the league, which we'll be speaking about shortly.
Yeah, I think 4th place is very much up for grabs. I think Sligo Rovers, they're also out of the cup. They'll be very lost that game. they had played so well to beat Viking 1-0 and also miss a penalty even in the Viking game. So look, I was at the first couple of European nights in the showgrounds. They were absolutely fantastic occasions. I'm sure they'll be busting a gut to get fourth place and potentially get back into Europe. Bows probably won't feel they're out of it yet either, and they'll still feel they have a good chance at the cup as well. So, yeah, I take your point. Pats are definitely favourites for the fourth spot, but there's a long way to go yet, and I still think they'll have to battle for it.
Yeah, I just said like you'd fancy them more than any of the other sides there, especially with the position that they're in. And Atakai looks like a really good signing for them now. He's got the goal in Europe. He's got the goal against Sligo now, and he looks to be their main man now. And they still have players like Owen Doyle and stuff like that. So you'd forget almost that they got rid of players like Dara Burns and Abanqua and their goalkeeper now, and Rogers came in. And he played in goal then for them. So they've had to make a few changes as well, but they seem to be going strong at the moment. We'll move on.
I believe Rogers actually played very well. They were very impressed with him on Sunday. So it's good that they were able to get a goalie of his caliber come straight in and get a clean sheet like that.
Yeah, and he said Tim Clancy said he'd been training with him, or with the squad and stuff, so on. But we'll move on to Drogheda and Shells, and a couple of old faces coming back to haunt Shelburne. Jack Moylan with the goal in the 7th minute, and when I saw that, I did expect Shells to go on and win the game comfortably, but Ryan Brennan came back to haunt the Reds with 2 goals, and Dale Rooney as well with a cracking goal as well. Well, actually, in fairness, one of Ryan Brennan's goal was a cracker too, and there seemed to be a little bit more to the celebration, it seemed. I don't know if that was at Damien Duff. I don't think it was at any of the fans, because I think the fans have a lot of time for the 2 lads. So I don't know what that was, but you've seen there's definitely a lot of Drogheda players in that a lot of ex-Shells players in that Drogheda team. Gary Deegan, Georgie Poynton, Dale Rooney, and Ryan Brennan. I might have more there as well. But it seemed as though that's a little bit of a derby at the moment, and they've gone now a point behind Shells, but Shells still have 3 games in hand on Drogheda at the moment. Drogheda have played 27 games, more than anyone else in the division so far, and still a big gap from Drogheda down to UCD and Finn Harpsden, but they've managed. Drogheda have pulled Shells back kind of into that 7th, 8th spot with that result, and I think Shells will be very annoyed, because obviously we know that they wanted to play that game against St. Pat's and they've gone a few weeks now without a game since, I think it was the Bray game that I was at. So they've gone a few weeks without a game, and I think that's maybe messed them up a little bit and derailed them a little bit.
Yeah, I think Shells probably feel maybe Europe has just gone, that Europe via the league is probably just gone at this point, unless, well, maybe if they could beat Bows at the weekend, it would open it back up again. But there is a bit of a gap to Pats, and they've got to catch the likes of Bows, Sligo, as well as catch Pats. At Drogheda, I think Drogheda are safe from relegation. I don't think they have any chance of battling for Europe at this point, but it's been an incredible season for them, because they'd have, you talked about Shells are going on the right track and they've got plenty of money behind them. The likes of Drogheda don't have anything like the resources available to the other clubs I've just been mentioning. And really, it's hats off to them. Even for them to finish in 8th, which is probably the lowest they can finish at this stage, would be a hell of an achievement, given the budget they have. And look, hats off to the people running the club in Drogheda, because they've done incredibly well, and they shouldn't be looking over their shoulder at UCD and Finn Harps at this stage, because I think they probably have enough points already to avoid relegation or even avoid the playoff. So well done to Drogheda. I think Ryan Brennan is still a fantastic player. All of the Brennans pretty much have been class players. Unfortunately, those of us from Limerick have known a lot of disappointment from a number of that family. They've been class players and have beaten us on occasions. But So I don't know for Drogheda. It's been, as I said, just been an incredible season and another great win for them. And certainly heading to Game Park is a very, very difficult place to go and get a result at the moment.
Yeah, look, fair play to them. I'm sure there was a lot that they wanted to get back at Shells, I'm sure. But it is what it is. Good result for Drogheda. I've no bad blood against Drogheda, so well done to them. I obviously wasn't happy when I saw the final score, but such is life. You just got to get on with bounce back, hopefully, against Bows this week in Tolka. So, but Shells traditionally in the last year or so haven't played well against Bows for whatever reason. So we will see. Jonathan Afalabi is obviously just signed for Bows as well, which I think will be a great signing for them. But we will move on to the last game of the Premier Division with UCD beating Finn Harps 2-1, which was probably, well, not a shock result, but a huge result for UCD, which lifts them above Harps. Donald Higgins with the goal in the 21st minute and Evan Caffrey with a screamer in the 58th minute to give UCD the win, and Filip Mihailovic in the 18th minute for Finn Harps, and Derek Keane with a red card in the 53rd minute. So yeah, a huge result for UCD, and it lifts them a point above Finn Harps with the same amount of games played. And I think that one will just keep turning back and forth throughout the course of the season. What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, I mean, it's the last 3 weeks they've swapped positions now. UCD picking up results when Harps were beating Derry right into the last minute and ended up losing the game. Then Harps having a great home win over Drogheda and moving ahead of UCD, and now UCD coming back and coming from behind and beating Harps. So yeah, it could well flip-flop a few more times between now and the end of the season. I think realistically, as I said, I can't see either of them finishing higher than 9th. So it is very much a battle for the playoff spot and trying to avoid automatic relegation. It may well go right down to the wire. I'm probably one of the people that was probably guilty of writing UCD off a few weeks ago when they lost the likes of Colin Whelan through injury and Liam Kerrigan from moving to Italy. And, well, they've certainly proved me wrong. And who knows? I don't think I dare make a prediction at this stage.
Yeah, it's. I think that one's going to go down to the wire. I saw David Webster the other day at the Pats game, and he did say he was out now for the course of the season. So, in my opinion, he's a huge loss for them, in terms of their defense, and it's going to be a long season. Long running, I suppose, for both sets of supporters. More so for Finn Harps because I think they've got more supporters than UCD. But yeah, look, it's going to be very interesting for UCD to finish in the playoff position and maybe stay up would be one hell of an achievement, considering Colin Whelan's been out with injury, and as you said, Liam Kerrigan gone to Italy. So if that's the case, I think suitors should be looking at Andy Moyler as a manager in demand after this season.
Yeah, look, he's clearly done a superb job. I mean, even for UCD to go up last season, I saw a lot of the first division, obviously, last season. I didn't expect UCD to come through the playoffs in the way they did, and fully deserve it. I mean, I was at the game against Waterford, and they were definitely the better side. I don't think any Waterford fan could claim they deserved to win in that game. And so hats off to UCD on one getting up and then really competing in the Premier Division, and they're in with a shout. I mean, I think they still have to go to Ballybuffet. I'm not sure when that game is, but maybe that could prove crucial. But look, still quite a few games to go, but it looks like it's going to be close.
I think that moves us nicely into the First Division, and a good result for your side, and I know you're at the game. Treaty United 2, Cork City 0. Goals from Ben O'Riordan and Mark Ludden, giving Treaty a fantastic victory over Cork. Talk to me about it.
Well, delighted to talk about this one. I think it was Cork's first defeat in something like 24 matches as well. Fantastic win and fully deserved. I know I'm totally biased, but Treaty played really, really well. Tommy Barrett had a game plan, and it stifled Cork, and really we hit them very, very well in the break. An absolute screamer from Ben O'Riordan. Check that one out on Twitter or wherever. And brilliant finish. And that was after actually the City keeper had made a superb save from Success Edigan. Treaty really should have been one up before that. It was actually a world-class save, in fairness. Full length, tipped it around. The ball looked like it was heading straight for the top corner. But even after the goal, Treaty was still comfortable. Got the second, got the penalty when Sean Gearns was taken down early in the second half. And a few late flurries from Cork, but they didn't really threaten. And it was a really impressive and very important win for Treaty. And, well, what else can I say? Delighted with the result.
Yeah, well, Cork have kind of fell off the track a slight bit with that result, and then obviously the 0-0 against Waterford last night as well at Turner's Cross. Although Waterford are a good side and stuff like that, you'd be expecting Cork to win that game, considering how strong they've been. They're still 3 points ahead of Galway with a game in hand. But Waterford are going strong there. Like, they're played 24 and now they're on 47, and they're only 6 points behind Galway with a game in hand, having earlier in the season got rid of Ian Morris, and they got a brilliant result against Galway, funny enough, and here it is there with the 2-1 Roland Idawu with the goal in the 18th minute, and then Junior Armando with the goal in the 83rd minute, and Stephen Walsh actually had given Galway an 11th minute lead. And then Conor McCormack, who you would imagine is a lot more experienced than that, to get the red card, straight red, I think it was in the 62nd minute, which then helped Waterford go and get that winner at the RSC.
Yeah, I mean, the one saving grace and the one bonus for Cork, I was actually with a couple of friends of mine at the game in Turner's Cross, and both Cork City fans, so I sat in the main stand rather than going the away end. And the news coming through from the RSC was a huge bonus for Cork, because they really are concerned about John Caulfield's side catching them. So to lose at home and not lose any ground is probably a real bonus to them. Waterford, as you say, they are in fantastic form. They had 10 men for 82 minutes last night in Turner's Cross and were fully deserving of their point. So it might be a bit concerning. Cork were free scoring so much, over 50 goals in the league already, but to not score in 2 successive games now might be a bit concerning for them. And never a bad result to draw 0-0 with that Waterford side, but you kind of feel when you're up against 10 men and at home for so long, they could have done better. For Waterford to come from behind and beat John Caulfield's side was really impressive as well, as you said. Fantastic performance. They do seem to have found form again. They have been a bit up and down this season. They didn't start the season very well. Then they went on a fantastic run. I think they had 7 or 8 wins on the bounce. Then had a bit of a dip in form, but they've certainly found form again. Had been very impressive in the FAI Cup, going to St. Pat's and knocking them out. Had some really good wins. I saw them in the Markets Field come to Limerick and beat Treaty 2-1 as well. Beat Galway, draw 0-0 at Turner's Cross with 10 men. They're 9 points behind Cork. I don't think they can win the league. I think they're nailed on. Obviously, they're in the playoffs. There's no doubt about that. They'll be very, very dangerous in the playoffs. And look, I've said this a few times. There are 3 full-time professional teams in the First Division. One of them, most likely Cork, but still possibly Galway, is going to win it. At most, one of the others can get up via the playoffs, and it's going to be some battle. And league position may not mean a huge amount. It's really who's going into them in the best of form. And at the moment, Waterford look like the form team, and their pure focus, well, they're still in the FAI Cup, so who knows? And they love the cup down in Waterford, even though they haven't won it very often. But who knows? Waterford will at the moment look like the form team going into the playoffs, and they'll certainly be eyeing going up via the playoffs.
Yeah, let's just move on to another team who are in the playoff spots, Longford, with a 3-0 win over Bray Wanderers. Jordan Adiemo with 2 goals in the 26th minute and the 50th minute, with Sam Verdon getting a goal on the 32nd minute as well, to give Longford a nice 3-0 win, and that moves them then onto fourth spot on 42 points, and Treaty then are just 6 points behind them. They've played the same amount of games. Waterford do have a game in hand on both sides though as well, but a good result for Longford, probably at this stage something you would expect. Bray are just kind of lingering in seventh. They have a huge gap between themselves and Cove and Athlone, but a huge gap then between themselves and Wexford, who are 4 points behind Treaty in sixth place with 32 points on the board. So at this stage, I think just with Bray, it's just a case of a bit of self-respect. There's a lot of turmoil there in terms of the fans and the club and the manager. But they're not in any danger of finishing in the bottom or in the bottom two even at this stage. But they're just kind of lingering in mid-table. But Longford, on the other hand, they're going strong under Gary Cronin. And I don't expect them to finish in the playoff positions now.
Yeah, the gap actually between Longford and Wexford is now 10 points. And it's only a few weeks ago I was talking about potentially 3 teams in the battle for 2 playoff places. Now, Wexford, they do play Longford on Saturday night. So possibly if Wexford were to win that, it would open it up. But look, at the moment with 7 games to go, it looks like it's between Treaty and Wexford for that last playoff place. And certainly Treaty winning last Friday night was absolutely crucial, especially with Wexford failing to beat Cove. So there's a 4-point gap at the moment between Wexford and Treaty. As far as I'm concerned, Waterford are absolutely guaranteed to be in the playoffs. I think Longford have 1 foot in the playoffs at this stage at the moment. If they can beat Wexford or certainly avoid defeat on Saturday, I think they will. It will be done and dusted. There's only 7 games to go, as I said. And it could, Treaty and Wexford could still go right down to the wire, with Wexford coming to the Markets Field on the last day of the season.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting running, and obviously then Wexford, then just to finish up on the results, they had a 2-2 draw with Cove, which is probably disappointing for Wexford, but Harry Groom with the 57th minute goal, and Luka Lovic with the 85th minute goal for Wexford, and Sean McGrath and Luke Desmond with goals for Cove. Cove actually taking the lead there, and then conceding and getting back into the lead. Then they're probably disappointed then with the late goal by Lovic in the 85th minute after Luke Desmond's goal. But again, it's just the League of Ireland, both divisions. You never know what results you're going to get, and I suppose I'll just run down just on to the league table just to finish up. We've obviously spoken about all the teams probably in depth, maybe except for Cove and Athlone, but they're just kind of rambling in the 8th, and Athlone then on 24th. I think they were idle there the weekend just gone, so they're sitting there on 8 points, and Cove are sitting there on 13. Athlone do have a game in hand on them, but Cork at first, Galway second, Waterford third, Longford in 4th, Treaty in 5th, Wexford in 6th, Bray in 7th, Cove and Athlone. And there's it's going to be an interesting run-in for a lot of teams there. I think Treaty will obviously be looking to finish in those playoff spots with the hope of getting up, considering they were done so well last season. They might be in a better position this season if they do get into those playoff spots, and for your sake, hopefully they do well. But yeah, I suppose we'll leave it at that. That's been our League of Ireland show. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. If you are listening to us on podcasts as well, don't forget to give us a 5-star rating. If you like us, if you don't, then don't. But yeah, and as well as that, please share it as well if you wouldn't mind. That'd be great.